Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to Looking Ahead, where we break down and understand what's happening in post-rotation in the rest of the world. Today's big discussion is Miraidon EX finally falling off in post-rotation. This powerful deck can't really keep up with the meta. We have a new archetype that's appeared in the City League, some new cards, as well as kind of some predictions of where we think the bigger tournament that's happening in Japan, what the meta share could look like, based on how the decks performed in the Korean tournament happening this weekend. So let's look at some new cards. So we see a brand new terrestrialized Pokemon, Forestry EX. A really explosive ability where you can search your deck for 5 grass energies and attach them to your Pokemon any way you like, but it's knocked out. You could team this up with Iona so you can punish your opponent by them going down to 4 prize cards. To go to a 4 prize card hand, it's really, really good. I don't know if there's any good partners right now. We do have Wuxiang, the other sort of grass, sort of legendary Pokemon that's come around, but I don't think those partners right now. I think Forestry could be really good in an Iona-focused disruptive deck, but we need all of those cards to be revealed yet first. Like I said, Wuxiang is kind of all right. It's definitely the worst out of all the legendaries. Xian Power is definitely by far the best, but it has a really good attack for 2 grass and a colorless, 60 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon for each prize card your opponent has taken. Team of Forestry, they're doing 120 for 3 energies. Go to 4, go to 5. If they have 5, you're going to hit for 300 damage, but you don't want to have that big attack right at the end. You want to have a big attack straight from the start. I think it's just about all right now. Unfortunately, we do a Spiritomb, which is another Mew counter. Yay! As long as this card is in play, not only active, all basic Pokemon V have no abilities, both yours and the opponent. I kind of like this as a more disruptive way. It does also shot off Drapion, so this could even find its way in decks like, what's it called? Mew as well, as like a countering the counter. I think it's a bit sad that TCG have printed so many cards to counter Mew after releasing Mew. I just don't know. Mew is still around after all these counters. I don't think this will stop Mew, but it's a really good disruptive card because it can slow down Luminion plays as well. And also potentially an expanded if it ever happens. And we have Mimikyu, a new safeguard Pokemon, so it can't be attacked by EX or V. I kind of like this, having the safeguard back. We did have Miltank, and now we've got Mimikyu. I like it. Has an all right attack, but this will be really good, especially in these wall and stall style decks. Some other new cards, a new return of Night March, Lost March, Mad Party, whatever you joined in Pokemon. For me, it was Night March, sorry. My first pre-release was Phantom Forces, so Night March is really special to me. But we saw original, I think like the Kitty Wall's like first evolution did have the Wings of Unite sort of ability attack, but we never saw it. But now we've had a few more with Murkrow and Flamingo. Flamingo has the ability Flying Flock. When you play this, search your deck for 3 other Flamingos to put them in your hand. This is a good sort of effect to get those into discard through Professor Sycamore. Wow, that really is a throwback. Professor's Research, or Serena, or Ultra Ball, or Zinni's Resolve. So you can try and fuel up the attack to attack with Wings of Unity. You do also have Ditto, so you can have every one of them in discard pile and attack with it, as well as also cards like Murkrow uses only 1 darkness energy. So that kind of is a really nice effect with this. If you have all of them in, you do hit for 240 damage. So not a guaranteed KO, still a lot of damage. But I think right now it needs to have a little bit more to really catch up, because Lost Box is its own. It's a really good single prize attacker. This one, if they release another Wings of Unite, could really put there in the forefront to be a good deck. But I think right now it may not be the right amount of damage outputs for a single prizer. But I'm a huge fan of it. And we see Ganoko, which is a new supporter card, which allows you to discard a special energy from each of your opponent's Pokemon. Really good against Mew and Lugia. Gain 1 from every one of the Pokemon is super, super strong. Especially if Mew Double Turbo probably taps like 1 or potentially has 1 to 3 Double Turbos out in play. You get rid of all of them. You can make sure the opponent doesn't take a single prize, which is such a strong attack. It's not even attack, sorry. So I really like this as a disruptive supporter, which could even fit in nearly every other deck, or definitely control. And 2 of the most beautiful design stadiums of all time. People have compared it to how lands look like in Magic. Snowy Mountain, which is if an energy is attached to a non-basic water Pokemon, put 2 damage counters on it. Think of it similar to the Lost Cemetery. And Wilderness of Destruction, which is a retreat cost for non-basic Pokemon, is 1 colorless more. Basic fighting type. Really good in the Leafeon Spidops deck. I know I'm a huge fan of it, especially in Disruption as well. This set is already so much better in the triplet beat, so I'm hugely excited to see how this is going to affect the format in Japan in a couple of weeks' time. So having a look at the top 8 decks placing in the City Leagues, we do see some increase in Tina play, Mew, and the Lugia Archeops deck. But weirdly a decrease in Miraidon, like I said earlier, starting to fall off, Gardevoir, and regular Lost Box. We still also have 40% of it is just Lugia and Giratina and Lost Box. It's general, kind of about the same, it's similar numbers to Lugia. That's why I had Lugia in my mind. But if you team up Lugia and Mew to those 4 archetypes, that's 70% of the meta. Kind of a bit worrying that is just literally just 4 decks, and the 2 brand new archetypes kind of are a bit more on the lower sort of side. We are seeing a decrease in the other section because people are favoring definitely play more Lost Box, play more Mew, play more Lugia, because these are the best decks right now in the format. We even see an increase of a different sort of Lugia deck, which I'm going to share to you very, very soon. And because of all of this stuff, I do see that's why Miraidon has started to really fall down. Having a large increase of a new archetype in Lugia is really affecting Miraidon. I know it hits for weakness, but it can't really ramp up with its other attackers. So that's why I think Miraidon's kind of slowed down. People are realizing how inconsistent it can be in getting all that damage output. So let's look at the top 6 performing decks. And yes, Lugia is back in from last week. It finally crept back in at the number 3 spot, but a new archetype had been born, one focusing on Weirdy and other single prize attackers like Radiant Charizard and Snorlax, kind of helping out to get the big one Nick heroes with Weirdy and using Penny to always like healing and using Mesagoza to get the Pokemon you want, and having Snorlax and Radiant Charizard as good single prize attackers to help in other matchups, which we did see some success in. I say some success, a lot of success in our Lugias in the current format we have now. Mew's back as the number 1 spot. No surprise there. This is always incredibly powerful. It took the space of regular Lost Zone Box. Definitely something to really consider about going into the big tournament in Japan. Lost Box was at the 6th most popular deck before it took the win, and it has been in the number 1 and 2 spot ever since. So it could be rampant to go back in the number 1 spot next week, but we just don't know because of what decks we might see from the League Championship very, very soon. Tina unfortunately did have a dip as well, and Miraidon has stayed at number 6 2 weeks in a row. It still gets a good percentage-wise for everything, but it didn't get the amount of wins. It just is falling behind a little bit when you can see decks like the Lugias, when you combine those wins are 13, where you combine the 2 Lost Zone, it's 7. So if you combine the 2 of Lost Zone, it gets to the number 3 spot, which is really something which is a bit sad to think about. It's just not as strong as Lugia is right now. And that's something that no one likes, as Lugia is now back on top. But I like the innovation that people are having in post-rotation. We're seeing some creativity again. Like I said last week, is creativity being rewarded? This Lugia is definitely being rewarded, and loads of people are playing it and getting 7 wins because of it. And this is really punishing Miraidon, because using single prize attackers, Miraidon has to do so much to try and keep out of it, because they can nearly get 1-hit KOs back on everything you have. So this is one of the lists which came in the winning list of the new Lugia. You can see they've gone back to a 4-3 line of Lugia, but a really heavy Mesagoza count to try and get those coin flips to get that Lugia V or V-Star you may want. This list focuses more on the Snorlax build and the Weird Ear as attacking. You have a Penny, which I really like because you can just pick up a Weird Ear, so you can get a big attack, move some energies around, pick it up, do some healing that way. I think it's a really powerful archetype. With Radiant Gardevoir and the V-Guard energy, huge tanking abilities. It's so strong in this format right now, especially where you're always trying to get the 1-hit KO. This one can really punish that by using single prize to attack. Going back to Drapion and having the 2 Luminions, very similar to what we're seeing in a lot of Lugia plays. Lots of other destructive cards as well, like Serena, Boss, and then Judge and Roxanne. Very powerful in the opponent. And Echoing Horn as well to get those cheeky KOs with your Snorlax or your Weird Ear. Overall, I think this is a really, really powerful list and really, really strong to consider. Definitely if you want to go to a tournament. This list has been performing well, and its other list right now focuses on Radiant Charizard. You can use Clara to get those big KOs near the end, and Luminous Energy, but Luminous Energy, remember, you can't use it if it has more energies, any other special energies attached to it. It becomes a colorless. So it's really good in that situation. Or because you play 3 fire energies, you can get some attachments in. That's really, really good. You can attack with Charizard when the opponent's taken about 3 prizes. Really, really good and strong attacks. And Clara, so you can reuse it, focusing not on the Collapse Stadium like the last one, but going with having 4 Mesogozas. But like the last one as well, it plays a 4-3 line of Lugia VSTAR. People are slowly cutting down on the Lugia VSTARs because they're not attacking with it and using other attackers as well. Overall, very, very similar list. Literally, for the attacking wise, they've just cut the Radiant Charizard for a Weirdeer. It's something you should really consider, especially understanding this list, because this is maybe where Lugia is going. Not the big disruptive one-hit KOs, but using big single prize attackers, which have a lot of HP and can deal so much damage and be disruptive. We then have Ceruledge got its first top 8 in the City League. I really like this list. Because Item Lock and Banette really, really flop, you can play a 3-3 line of Ceruledge with 4 rare candy. Really love this. Playing the 2-2 Armoroo, so you can move the energies any way you like to the active because of Magma Basement, and other attacks like Entei and Delphox, which will work incredibly strong. Now, this deck doesn't play a lot of healing. It does play Cheryl, which is fine, but you're playing 1 Power Pad and 1 Cheryl, and 1 Radiant Serena. I wish it kind of played a few more, like the Slowbro, which can move damage counters to it, or the Oricorio, which can heal 20 from evolved Pokemon. I wish they did go with that sort of style deck, but they didn't, but it's still got top 8. Really, really impressive stuff. I like this being a lot more creative with us for a lot more support account, like most decks, focusing a lot on Colress as the main sort of draw engine with Bibarel as well. Raihan is really good as well, and Jet Energy to move their Pokemon to the active. Because there isn't a lot of healing, you're going to probably do a lot of retreating with your Ceruledge, probably retreat maybe like 2 times, move the energies, and then play that big Cheryl to get healing on nearly all 3 of your guys, or having Entei and Delphox to take the brunt of doing loads of damage early on. I think this list is pretty fine overall. Definitely not the build I would go with. I would probably prefer a lot more healing out with it, but I'm really happy to see it did get a top 8 position. And Mew is evolving. It's not just Lugia who has changed the game. Mew, yes, Mew is back with a new advanced technology. It already plays a load of Lost Vacuums because it always wants to be that Judge Path deck. And because a load of end cards are going to be in a Lost Zone, why not add Cramorant to it? It helps in the prize rate where you've got another single prize attacker, especially in the Lost Zone matchup. You can always just use it to nearly KO everything on the board state. Or potentially you go back-to-back Cramorant attacks. Your opponent may have to KO 2 of these and 2 Mew VMAXs, or 1 Mew VMAX and a Genesect. That's really, really bad for their price trade. You want to feed them these single price attackers, and Cramorant is a really good one to give you some load of damage. And you also can team up with Cross Switcher and Chorus Experiment to really help disrupt and draw in this deck. I think this is a really fun sort of list. I like that it evolved. It did get a top 8 position. Will this Mew be talked about and gone a bit further? I know it's had quite a bit of discussion on Twitter about this list, but will it actually kind of see play in our sort of format, or potentially the tournament that's happening in Japan next weekend? So Korea did have their second season sort of thing, and this was the day 1 meta of the top 32 players. There weren't a load of players. There was about 166, still pretty good right now. But you can see here with the meta share, Miraidon, but the top 32 was only a 1 deck. 1 deck, incredibly low performance in the last one. Whereas you look at Lost Zone box, if we combine the 2 together, it's 12. So about half the meta, a third of the meta was Lost Zone. And Lugia was 8 and Gardevoir was 5 and Mew was 3. A very big sort of difference. And the only one of us was like Arceus build and a Goodra Lost Zone. Also, Goodra did actually, I believe, got top 4 in the senior division in this format. So that's quite nice to see that people are still playing Goodra. It still does work in this format, even though we did have post-rotation and lost quite a few cards, like the healing aspect to it. Overall, this did give a quite a bit of insight. Mew did actually win the tournament overall. And I think there was very limited information what I could see as of recording this. And I believe there was like, you could play different, similar to Japan, you could play a different deck in day 1 to day 2. Fit person 1 played Lugia day 1, and then 1 with Mew in the top 16 or top 32 matchups. And it won against Lost Zone Box. And also Gardevoir got top 8. So we are seeing some big sort of decks make their way into it, but we're seeing all the household names we know. We're seeing Lugia, we're seeing Lost Zone, we're seeing Mew. But because of this sort of results, how can we implement this into the other one? So looking ahead into the next championship next week, I do think that the top 3 decks will be Lost Zone, Mew, and Lugia. Definitely focusing a lot more on probably just the regular Lost Zone box will probably do the best. Here are some rough percentage-wise, which I think will do well, judging on how other regionals have been, how it looked in the past, the big tournament in Japan, kind of where I think it could go. I do think we could have another 3,000 plus event because it's incredibly popular Japan right now in Pokemon because you can play it in their home turf. So obviously everyone will want to be there. I do think Lost Zone will be the biggest percentage-wise, potentially maybe even 40%. Just ahead why I do believe this all adds up, not into it. It's not going to go hugely crazy with it. Maybe focusing more on the regular comfy one instead of Giratina, but I wonder if I will actually be correct with some of these predictions. Then I think it's going to be Lugia and Mew. I think Lugia is in such a good position, especially because it's now adapted to a new sort of format with using Weirdir, Snorlax, and Charizard. I think Lugia could definitely pack a huge punch and not get the one-hit KOs, which it's used to in a single prizer. Mew is definitely has never left the top 3 position to be best deck in format. It's always been so good. It's definitely been bouncing around from the number 3 to number 1 spot a lot during this post rotation. But but I think right now it's definitely still at the number 3. Really, really powerful stuff. And then Gardevoir and Miraidon are definitely on the bit of decline, maybe the 8 or 9%. Maybe Miraidon could bump up to 10 because a lot of people still play it. But I think looking at all of the City League results has happened, we're seeing a huge increase in regular Lost Zone and Lugia and Mew, and very much would go up and down with Miraidon and Gardevoir. People will be looking at more playing the Lost Zone decks because if it's the penultimate week, they're going to play the decks which they're used to the most. So, hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I hope this has been a little bit insightful to kind of think about where this meta percentage could look like going into our rotation when that happens on Friday. Very, very exciting. If you're new, please give a like and subscribe. It really, really means a lot to me, and thank you so much for the support. Last 2 videos have hit 1,000 views in under a week. Will this one get it? And it's if it does, that's absolutely amazing. I'll be back next week for another post-rotation look to see how that big tournament affected the meta. And this week, we're going to see my picks for my favorite decks in this the new format we're getting right now. So be sure to look out to that this week. My name is TCG, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. Bye for now.